What happens when Hollywood royalty finally decides she's done being talked down to on live television? The studio lights were blazing that Tuesday morning as Jada Pinkett Smith took her seat at the view table. But no one, neither audience nor host, was ready for what was about to unfold. By the time the cameras stopped rolling, one of daytime TV's most outspoken hosts would storm off the set, leaving a stunned audience and a guest who refused to back down, curious to see one of the most unforgettable clashes in talk show history. Make sure to hit subscribe and drop a comment because this story will make you rethink everything you know about live TV drama. The morning started like any other episode. Joy Behar shuffled her notes, glasses perched on the tip of her nose, preparing to grill yet another celebrity. The View had built its reputation on sharp questions and even sharper hosts, and Joy prided herself on being the sharpest knife in the drawer, taking down politicians, stars, and moguls alike, always walking away with that signature smirk intact. Our next guest needs no introduction, Joy announced, her New York accented voice slicing through the chatter. She's an actress, producer, and author who never shies away from controversy. Please welcome Jada Pinkett Smith. The audience erupted as Jada walked onto the set, radiating a quiet, unshakable confidence. Her crisp white blazer shimmered under the lights, and her pulled-back hair highlighted the strong angles of her face. There was an energy about her that morning, something the seasoned hosts failed to notice until it was too late. Jada, welcome back to The View, Joy said, extending a hand. Jada shook it firmly, replying with calm, measured poise. Thank you for having me, Joy. As they settled into their chairs, the usual greetings flowed between Whoopi Goldberg, Sarah Haynes, and Alyssa Farah Griffin. The conversation started innocuously enough, touching on Jada's latest projects and book tour. But Joy, she was just getting started. So Jada Joy leaned in, eyes sharp. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Your marriage had, shall we say, been unconventional. Do you think discussing your personal life publicly has been helpful or harmful to your family? Jada's expression remained steady, though anyone paying close attention might notice a subtle tightening around her eyes. Joy, I believe honesty and transparency can be helpful, especially in complex relationships, Jada replied, measured and calm. But Joy pressed on, her tone shifting to that familiar prosecutorial edge. Some things should stay private. Don't you think your children have grown up with their parents' intimate details splashed across magazines and talk shows? Isn't that a form of child abuse? The words hung in the air like a lightning bolt. The audience shifted uncomfortably. Whoopi opened her mouth, ready to intervene, but Jada raised a hand, signaling she was fully in control. Child abuse, Jada repeated, her voice dropping to a commanding tone that required no shouting. Joy, I'm going to stop you right there. You want to talk about abuse? Let's talk about the abuse of using someone's pain as entertainment to boost your ratings. Joy's confident smirk wavered. She hadn't expected this level of precision and control. I'm just asking the questions our viewers want answered, Joy said. That's journalism. Journalism, Jada's laugh had no humor in it, only steel. Is that what you call this? From where I'm sitting, it looks like a woman who's never had the courage to be vulnerable in her own life, trying to shame another woman for having that courage. The camera zoomed in, capturing every flicker of tension, every unspoken word. The atmosphere in the studio had shifted completely. The stakes, higher than ever. And in that moment, daytime television witnessed a confrontation no one would ever forget. Joy's face was beginning to flush, a clear sign she was losing control of the narrative she thought she was directing. Now, wait just a minute, Joy snapped, her composure starting to crack. I have been in this business for decades, and I don't need some Hollywood princess telling me what journalism is. Hollywood princess Jada's eyebrows shot up. For the first time since sitting down, she smiled. But it was not a pleasant smile. It was the kind of smile that comes right before someone's world gets turned upside down. Joy, Let me tell you something about princesses, Jada said. Real princesses don't hide behind their crown when they're scared. They face their fears head on. What is that supposed to mean? Joy demanded, though something in her voice suggested she really did not want the answer. Jada leaned back in her chair, suddenly looking completely relaxed, despite the electric tension crackling between them. It means that for all your tough talk and aggressive questioning, you have never once had the guts to examine your own life with the same scrutiny you demand from your guest. The words hit Joy like a physical blow. Her mouth opened and closed several times, but no sound came out. The other hosts froze in their chairs, unsure whether to jump in or let the verbal showdown continue to its inevitable conclusion. The studio audience was so quiet you could hear the hum of the overhead lights. "Excuse me," Joy finally managed, her voice barely above a whisper. "You heard me perfectly," Jada replied, her tone calm despite the bomb she just dropped. "You sit here every day hiding behind this desk, throwing stones at people who have the courage to live their lives authentically. But when was the last time you looked in the mirror and asked yourself the hard questions?" Joy's face was now completely red, her hands gripping the edge of the table so tightly her knuckles had turned white. "How dare you come on my show and attack me personally? This is supposed to be about you and your choices." "Your show." Jada laughed again, genuine amusement in her eyes. "Joy, this is not your show. This is The View. Last I checked, there were other people at this table. But that is the problem, isn't it? You think everything revolves around you and your opinions." Whoopi finally found her voice. "Ladies, perhaps we should take a step back here." "No, Whoopi," Jada said, her eyes never leaving Joy's face. "I think it is time someone said what everyone in this studio is thinking. Joy, you have built your entire career on being the mean girl at the lunch table. You think cruelty is the same as intelligence, and you have convinced yourself that tearing other people down somehow builds you up." "I am not cruel," Joy sputtered, her famous composure completely shattered. "I ask tough questions. That is what separates real journalists from celebrity fluff pieces." Real journalist, Jada's voice rose for the first time, controlled and powerful, not wild. Real journalists do research. They ask thoughtful questions. They don't ambush their guests with accusations of child abuse just because it will make good television. Joy stood up abruptly, her chair rolling backward with such force it nearly toppled. "I do not have to sit here and listen to this." "Actually, you do," Jada said calmly, remaining seated. "Because for once in your life, you are not in control of this conversation. You wanted to play hardball. Congratulations. You are finally playing with someone who knows how to swing the bat." The camera crew worked overtime, capturing every micro-expression, every bead of sweat forming on Joy's forehead. The director in the booth was probably having the best day of his career, knowing they were witnessing television gold in real time. "You know what your problem is," Jada continued, her voice taking on an almost therapeutic calm. "You are so desperate to be relevant, to be seen as a fearless truth-teller that you have forgotten the difference between being brave and being a bully." "I am not a bully." Joy shot back, though her voice cracked. "Really? Then explain to me how cornering someone about their family trauma on live television is not bullying. Explain how asking a mother if she is abusing her children is not bullying. Explain how you justify using someone's pain as entertainment for your audience." Joy opened her mouth to respond, but Jada held up a hand, and somehow, against all odds, Joy actually stopped talking. "I'll tell you what I think," Jada said, leaning forward slightly. "I think you're jealous. Jealous of people who have the courage to be vulnerable, to admit when they're struggling, to show the world that they're human with real problems and real feelings." Jealous Joy's voice shrieked, all pretense of professional composure gone. "Of what? Of your messy marriage? Of your public humiliation?" "There it is," Jada said softly, but her words carried across the studio. "There's the real Joy Behar, the woman who thinks vulnerability is weakness, who thinks admitting you're struggling means you've failed. That's really sad, Joy. That's a really sad way to live your life. Sarah Haynes finally found the courage to speak. Maybe we should go to commercial break. No, Jada said firmly. Joy started this conversation and we're going to finish it. Joy, you wanted to talk about my marriage? Fine, let's talk about it. My husband and I have been through hell and back together. We've made mistakes. We've hurt each other. We've struggled and found our way back to love. That's what real relationships look like. Messy, complicated, beautiful, and painful all at the same time. Joy was still standing but swaying slightly as if the ground beneath her had become unstable. I wasn't trying to. You weren't trying to. What, humiliate me? Expose my failures? Make me look weak in front of millions of viewers? Jada's voice remained steady, but there was steel under the silk now. Because if that's not what you were trying to do, then you're even worse at your job than I thought. The words hit like a slap across the face. Joy's mouth fell open, and for several long seconds she just stared at Jada in shock. How dare you question my professional competence, Joy finally whispered. The same way you dared to question my competence as a mother, Jada replied without missing a beat. The difference is I have evidence to back up my claims. Your interview style today has been sloppy. Your questions have been loaded with judgment instead of genuine curiosity. You've allowed your personal biases to completely derail what could have been an interesting conversation. Joy was trembling now. Whether from rage or humiliation, it was impossible to tell. The other hosts watched this verbal massacre with a mixture of horror and fascination. You want to know what's really unprofessional? Jada continued, seemingly oblivious to Joy's unraveling. Ambushing a guest with personal attacks disguised as journalism. Using your platform to tear down other women instead of lifting them up. Hiding behind the excuse of tough questions when what you're really doing is feeding your audience cruelty and calling it entertainment. Joy's breathing became rapid and shallow. She looked around the studio as if searching for an escape, but the cameras were everywhere, capturing every moment of her professional demolition. I've been doing this show for over 20 years, Joy said, her voice barely audible. And in all that time, Jada replied, her tone almost gentle now, which made her words even more devastating. Have you ever stopped to consider that maybe, just maybe, there's a better way? Have you ever thought you could use your influence to heal instead of harm? I don't, Joy stammered, all her famous quick wit gone. You don't, what, Joy? You don't care about the damage you do. You don't think about the real people behind the headlines you dissect for sport. You don't consider that the celebrities you mock and criticize are human with feelings and families. Whoopi made another attempt to regain control. Jada, I think we need to... No, Whoopi. Let her answer, Jada said, eyes locked on Joy. I'm genuinely curious. Joy, when you go home at night, alone with your thoughts, do you ever feel proud of the way you've treated people? Do you ever feel good about making someone cry on national television? Joy's hands shook visibly now. She tried to speak but could only make strangled sounds, not quite words. Because I'll tell you what I see when I look at you right now, Jada continued, her voice taking on an almost clinical, surgical quality. Jada held up a hand and somehow, amazingly, Joy actually stopped talking. I see a woman who is so afraid of her own vulnerability that she spent decades attacking vulnerability in others, Jada said. I see someone convinced that being mean is the same as being strong. And honestly, it makes me feel sorry for you. The word sorry hung in the air like a death sentence. Joy's face crumpled as if she had been physically struck. The pity in Jada's voice cut deeper than all the anger and accusations that came before. Don't you dare, Joy whispered, tears forming in her eyes. Don't you dare feel sorry for me. Why not? Jada asked, her tone now carrying genuine compassion. Joy, what happened to you that made you think the only way to feel powerful was to make others feel powerless? What hurt you so badly that you decided kindness was weakness? The question was so gentle, asked with real curiosity and concern, that it was like watching someone defuse a bomb with the wrong wire cut. Joy's entire defensive structure collapsed. "I can't," Joy said, backing away from the table. "I can't do this anymore." "You can't do what anymore?" Jada pressed, still soft but unrelenting. "You can't answer honest questions about your own behavior. You can't face the same scrutiny you dish out to everyone else. You can't keep pretending that cruelty is just part of the job." Joy was openly crying now, mascara streaking down her cheeks. The studio was so silent you could hear her ragged breathing through the microphones. "This isn't fair," Joy sobbed. "This isn't how this was supposed to go." "Joy, how was it supposed to go, Joy?" Jada asked, rising from her chair for the first time. "Were you supposed to tear me apart while I sat quietly and took it? Were you supposed to humiliate me and then send me on my way with a fake smile and a thanks for coming on the show?" Joy wiped her face with the back of her hand, smearing her makeup even further. I was just doing my job." "No, Joy," Jada said calmly. "You were doing what you have always done. You used your platform to hurt someone because it makes you feel better about yourself. But here's the thing you never considered. What happens when your victim decides to fight back?" The cameras captured every moment as Joy looked around at her co-hosts, searching for support that wasn't coming. Whoopi looked concerned but not sympathetic. Sarah and Alyssa stared at their hands, unable to meet Joy's desperate gaze. "I need to leave, Joy," said suddenly, voice thick with tears and humiliation. "You don't have to leave," Joy, Jada said, the kindness in her voice almost harder to watch than the earlier aggression. "You just need to apologize. For the ambush, for the personal attacks, for using my family's pain as entertainment, for building a career on other people's suffering. Just say you're sorry." Joy's voice cracked as she tried to form the words. Joy stood there for what felt like an eternity, tears streaming down her face, her body shaking. The studio was silent, everyone waiting to see if she would take responsibility. Instead, Joy ripped off her microphone with such force that the wire snapped. She threw it down on the table, the sharp crack echoing through the studio. "I quit," she said, voice barely recognizable through the tears and rage. "I quit this show. I quit this network. I quit all of it." Without another word, Joy Behar stormed off the set, leaving behind stunned silence and a guest who had accomplished the impossible. She had rendered one of television's most notorious loudmouths completely speechless. The cameras continued rolling as Jada calmly returned to her seat, looking into the camera with a slight smile. "And that," she said to the millions watching at home, "is what happens when you confuse courage with cruelty." This confrontation that shook daytime television shows that the most powerful response to aggression is not more aggression, but refusing to be a victim. What do you think of Jada's handling of Joy's attack? Was she too harsh or exactly what Joy needed to hear? Drop your thoughts in the comments and make sure to subscribe for more incredible stories that prove truth really is stranger than fiction.